Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Arcane podcast, also known as the Piggledy podcast. Today, we are joined by myself, Peter. We've got that's you, Alex,
Oh, that's me, Alex.
and your camera lagged while it was doing that. So that's great.
Oh,
And unfortunately, we don't have the camera on today, but we are joined by Callum, the voice actor of Jinx. Say hello, Callum.
It's me, the disembodied voice of Jinx. You see?
Mm-hmm.
it's just incredible.
Uncanny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really impressive how you just like transform your voice for Jinx, because you sound nothing like her right now, but
Yeah, man. It's tough to do it. So got to rest the vocal cords.
gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, no, unfortunately, internet troubles over in probably Hollywood, where you are currently, or LA, where you currently are. So no camera, but we'll put on a picture or something. So
I'm gonna assume you said a funny quip because if my audio cut out there,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna agree. Yes.
please bear with us during this podcast, during these
Yeah,
troublesome times.
This could be another sloppy podcast.
You know what? The Higgledy podcast is just a sloppy podcast. That's what we are.
I mean, it's in the name, really.
Yeah. We're also recording this in the middle of the day rather than the evening on the wrong day, so stuff's just weird today. But we'll just roll with the punches.
Yeah, and also saying that I do have work going on in the house, so there is a possibility that you may end up hearing it, but hopefully not. Hopefully, Discord will filter that all out. But yeah, if you do hear it, that's why.
Nothing so far. So
Good.
cool. We're in a bit of an awkward situation because Callum, despite voicing her in the show, you haven't seen the final 3 episodes of Arcane. Is that correct?
My audio cut out again. What did you say? All I heard was Callum and then nothing.
This could be.
I'm so sorry. Do you want me to leave? I feel like it's better if I just go.
We could always bring you back in next week, bud.
Yeah, like I actually don't know what's happened, but recently my internet has just decided to crawl to a snail's pace.
Weird question: is it just Discord or is it all your audio? Because it could be an audio hardware issue.
No, it's not audio. It's like all of like just my internet in general.
Okay.
It's like for some reason massively throttling.
Okay.
So ignoring that cut, we've lost a man. We're a man down. So we're gonna continue on as a duo.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get the voice actor for Jinx back next week, assuming his internet actually decides to work.
Or it might be someone else.
Or someone else. We'll see.
Might
We
be a
have a lot
different
of
voice actor.
connections.
Or, yeah, exactly. Cool. So Arcane non-spoilers, I guess, first of all.
Yep. I'm down to talk about non-spoilers, although at this point, I'm not sure how much we can get into without.
Well, it was like a
spoilers,
2-minute conversation last week, so it's probably going to be about the same this week.
I mean, it's good. Pretty much just us being like, it's good.
Yeah.
Like, like what else is there really to say?
I think this might be my favorite of the 3 acts. And I think it kind of followed the trend I assumed it would, which is first act great, second act good, but it's leading up to the third act, and then the third act is landing it.
I felt that too.
Yeah, but I think that this one, without getting into spoilers, last week I talked about kind of not being certain whether it was going to wrap up in a satisfying way, and it definitely sets up more story, but it definitely ends in a satisfying way. We're going to get to it later, but it has been confirmed that there's a season 2 coming. But if that was the end of the show, it would be a kind of heart-wrenching ending, but I would actually be okay with that being the ending of the show if that's what they had wanted to do. So yeah, they ended it in a really satisfying way. Animation, this particular act, I mean, it's been great throughout, but I really felt like they started pulling out all the stops with the animation as well.
Oh, it was incredible. Like, again, without going into too much detail, they use a lot of different art styles in these final three, and it meshes together so well. It's a bit jarring when it first goes into like a totally different art style to kind of what you've seen, but like you quickly get into it. At least I did, and I was just like, this is amazing. Like I think that's another thing. We've said in one of the other podcasts about you can do more with animation because you know you can switch up the style and everything and kind of make it into uh, what you want rather than if it was live action, and it just took it to a whole nother level with being able to do that in these final 3.
And it kind of almost feels like that kind of elevation with the art styles changing and doing kind of more crazy stuff with the animation. It kind of made it feel like the stakes were getting bigger because like the entire plot of Arcane has been in part this reintroduction of Arcane elements into the world of Piltover. And so as the animation starts to get more crazy, it's almost like that's magic coming in kind of thing. Again, I can't talk too much about it with certain spoilers, but there is a moment when a magical artifact is used and they kind of do this like really crazy animation effect that wasn't in the first 2 acts at all, but it kind of makes it feel like, oh shit, this is powerful sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's like it's I think they, as you said, they pulled out all the stops for these last 3 and just kind of I think what you're saying about how it kind of ramped up and then you had like the middle section and then it ramped up again, it I completely second that. I think it was almost like having 2 climaxes in the show pretty much.
yeah. I mean, and it's not that the second act didn't have a good ending to it either, but it's all building towards the final bit. So yeah, I think as well, music was great. I mean, the music's been great throughout, but like there are 2 songs that I've been listening to on repeat from the last 2 episodes, um, and weirdly, one of them, I'm assuming, I went on his Wikipedia and there's no information about him doing this song, but it says it's by him on the actual song. The final song in the show is apparently a song by Sting.
Oh.
And like it says by Sting, and I googled Sting and was like, did you really do a song for a League of Legends TV show? And there's no information on his Wikipedia page, but they don't think there's any other musicians called Sting, so yeah, that's fucking cool. Like getting a fucking legendary musician in to do the final song of the show is fucking cool.
I mean, either that or is the legendary wrestler Sting.
could be. But yeah, so the music's been great. Performances continue to be great. And I feel like I'm running out of steam to talk about stuff that's non-spoiler related.
Yeah, it can slowly start feel it dwindling because I'm ready to go. Like there's so much I want to talk about in the spoiler stuff.
Let's just jump into it then. Spoilers for the final act of Arcane and obviously the previous 2 acts of Arcane as well. So this is your warning. Chapters below. Cool. Let's go. All right.
Where to even begin? God damn, these last 3 episodes, fucking incredible. Like I was messaging you like sort of while I was watching them, and obviously I didn't want to give too much away, but like I was blown away. Like seeing as we're just talking about the animation, I feel like it's only right to sort of go straight into that, which is like I'm more specifically thinking the Echo and Jinx fight.
Which, by the way, the theory that I came across last week and then voiced on the podcast, that Echo was the leader of the Firelights, was 100% correct.
Yeah, I think, as I said on the other podcast, I thought it was him, but I was unsure because I heard
it's
they
not
were
his
gonna
normal
like
power set and whatever.
Yeah, and I heard they were gonna like add the Owl character to League. So I thought, well, how can that be possible if it's the same character, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad it was him because I think it was I thought it might be a bit of a cheesy reveal, but I don't think it was at all. I think it worked really well with what they were setting up. and it played into the story like just really neatly.
And it answered my question from last week, which is why he didn't seem to react to Jinx, which is that he did already know that it was Jinx, and that he's kind of given up on her, which is that's just a really interesting place to take that character moving forward. Is he's on Vi's side, but he also doesn't believe in saving Jinx. So that's a really, imagine if Luke and Leia were working together in Star Wars, but Leia didn't believe you could redeem Darth Vader, and Luke did, sort of thing. It's an interesting dynamic to have. So, yeah. I mean, I guess you kind of have that, but not really in Star Wars.
It doesn't really get explored that much. But yeah, I loved Echo. I loved seeing him in that sort of role of being, this leader of. It gave me vibes of like a new world. That was created from all of the destruction and like just awfulness around it. And even though he talks about how his people are sort of dying and starving around him and whatever, and then you get taken to this like beautiful, luscious sort of environment where people are living happily and whatever. And I think that really adds to his character, especially when you know that he probably became like quite embittered by the fact that his like mentor and friend died like at the same time that you know Vanda, who was known to take in, I guess, like orphans, died. So that was his second option. Plus, two of his friends died because of powder. One of them just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Well, he thought Vi was dead, didn't he? So that's in his mind free.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And then powder became Jinx. Like his whole life just got ripped away from him pretty much. And he probably, became really embittered by that because, you know, he was already having these thoughts even as a young kid. I mean, they all were. Everyone in that group knew that the situation they were in was terrible compared to the people up top. And then that probably just hammered it home for him at that age, like you see even in real life, when kids experience tragedy on that sort of level, they're like forced to grow up like really quickly. And seeing as he's meant to still be only a teenager in, the final 3 episodes, you can really like tell that comes across. And like the fact that he does make like these hoverboards and whatever, like when Heimerdinger's like, why this form, and he basically just says like you gotta live, like,
yeah, it's not just enough to have people survive, you've got to give them a reason to live, I think.
I don't know if it's what I was meant to take away from that, but what I took away was that it's fun,
it's fun, and it invokes the fire lights who can fly, and that's kind of the symbol. So
yeah and like you still get across that he is that young character. Like it, like if there was someone older in his position, you might not expect that from them, because he still has this mindset of like, well, we've still got to have something that enables us to actually have a bit of fun and also have this symbolism.
Well, case in point, Vanda, who was basically the leader of the Undercity, basically didn't have any of that, and like he made it decent, but like it was still pretty dystopian. But where Echo and his people live almost seems like, an impoverished, sure, but almost a utopia. They're free, they've got beauty around them, they're living a life that they can, it's maybe not everything they want, but it's better than what they had before under Vanda. So right then and there, you can kind of see that he's kind of a better leader than Vanda. And maybe it's, it's not on the same scale, and maybe if it was, he would be a worse leader. But for what he's got, he's done really, really well with it.
Yeah, I just think his character was really well done, and like all of his interactions with like Vi and Jinx, um like you could sense the pain he had, like even like especially when he first sees Vi again and she like hugs him and whatever and he tears up, like you you can tell it's kind of brought it all back to him, and especially the hatred that he has towards Silco specifically, because you can tell that even though he thinks Jinx won't change, it's still hurtful to him.
Well, the feeling I got from it is that I think he does hate Jinx, and so when he goes to fight her, he is fully prepared to kill Jinx until he's actually there, and then he just sees Powder. And it's like, I think in his head, he's kind of made it so like he hates Jinx and Powder's dead, and he fully believes that you can't redeem her. And then he actually sees her, and like he's in control, and in that moment, he can't finish the job because she's still Powder, even though he might still think that she's irredeemable, but he can't be the one to do it, sort of thing. Which I think adds loads of emotional depth to him as well. He's just a brilliant character. Like, particularly because I knew he was going to come back in the third act because he was big in the first act, but he was probably the least explored of those kids in the first act.
Yeah, definitely.
So the fact that they've kind of really made you care for him and appreciate the depth of him so quickly is really awesome.
And I think it also speaks volumes of like that type of character as well, because obviously in a lot of different media, if you look at the same sort of origin, it almost feels like it could be like a villain origin story, like having just everything ripped away from him. Like you might almost expect him to just kind of like fade into the background. And they almost even present it as that, like the firelights going around causing trouble and whatever. You could take away from that, oh well, they're like villains, especially because they're working against the characters we're seeing on screen. But it turns out that's not the case at all. If anything, it just prompted him to go harder on actually trying to help, the people around him. And I think that was a really interesting concept, because they could like, obviously in the game and everything, he is meant to be like a hero. But if you didn't know that, you could very well believe that that type of character would become a villain.
And so then going to the actual fight that he has with Jinx, and we briefly touched on the animation beforehand. One quick question I have: do you think he actually time traveled there with the stopwatch, or do you think that was more kind of hinting at what he's going to be doing in the future, and he's just like, because I can see it two ways: either he has the ability to time travel already, but it's like very limited because he doesn't do it more than once, or it's more him and Jinx have played that game so many times that he knows her moves, and that first bit is him working out what move she's going to do, and then when it cuts back to the normal animation, that's just him predicting all of her moves, sort of thing. And so he didn't actually time travel.
That's interesting. I did think about the fact that it might not have been actual time travel, because I was a bit unsure myself, but I didn't think about, the fact that they may have had run-ins before, and he sort of knows how it goes.
I don't necessarily, it could be actual run-ins with Jinx, but because it like flashed to them as kids and like her hitting him in the chest with the paintball gun and everything, I think it was almost like they've done a game where he's got a bat and she's got a paintball gun when they were kids, and he knows exactly what she's going to do, and she's not like,
I think that might actually be the case, because I think that, like, especially these last three, it all feels very symbolic. Like it goes, you see quite a lot of flashbacks of them going back and sort of remembering what it was like beforehand, and like, revisiting some of the characters and whatever. And I think it probably was the case, because it's very symbolic of like the the stopwatch, the actual time, and then like the flashbacks and whatever. um it's almost like it was rewinding, and he was just seeing all that. So yeah, I think that it's probably pretty likely.
And then that kind of makes a little bit more sense that Heimerdinger is going to help him develop the actual time travel tech, whereas this time, if he has invented it, but like very primitive, then holy fuck, he's like, we already know he's smart, but if he can create time travel, even if it's very basic, then holy shit, he's smart. But
Yeah.
Either way, I'm fine with whichever way they have it. But yeah, I wonder whether that was the indication, is that he wasn't actually time traveling, but it was a little bit of a wink wink for. I guess the question really would be to show it to someone who has no idea what Echo's power set is in the game, and ask them whether they think he just time traveled or not. Would be probably the best like litmus test. But yeah, that fight though was that the fight you messaged me about, or was that a different fight that you messaged me about?
Oh boy, I can't remember. It depends what I said. Let me just have a look at our messages, see if I can remember. I think it was that one. It was either that one or
the one next
the
episode.
one with the one with Jason Vi. Was I think I specifically said episode 2, so I think that might have been the Vi and Jace one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I didn't want to say too much about the Echo one because I wanted to go into more detail about that one on here. So
okay, well let's dive into it then.
Yeah, it was just fucking incredible.
Yeah,
like, really, it was just like, as I said, it was kind of like caught me off guard with how it changed into that animation style, but I think it worked so well.
It's such a bold choice, right? To just completely change the style like that. And particularly like, you can change the animation style in small ways. Like lots of like older animations have like it. A classic example. It's not that old of an animation, but a classic example of SpongeBob frequently changes to like super hyper realistic drawings to like enhance the comedy of a moment. But you don't usually have that happen in a lot of animation when it's like a very dramatic, serious moment. But this is like one of the big character moments of these two childhood friends about to potentially fight to the death, or almost certainly fight to the death, and suddenly this fucking kick-ass music jumps on and it starts changing animation style, and you're like, what? But it works. It totally works. And like, whoever made that decision, the fact they had the creative freedom to make that decision is so fucking cool. But yeah,
I think it, like, going back to what you said about an example being SpongeBob, I think a better example, even though it was good, is just anime. I think it was a very anime experience. And I think it worked especially well because they were trying to show the side of them as kids, sort of just playing around, and then like you like, even the color scheme and everything, it like changes with it. Like you can see the characters more sort of clearly when they're kids, and then like when it cuts back to them sort of grown up, it's all more kind of like distorted and like darkened, like, I guess, like stencily. And it like, you can just feel the sort of connection they have being represented in like a really neat way.
Because particularly like in live action, one or two things would have happened in live action, right? You either would have heard like a voiceover of them as kids talking, or you would have had a quick flashback to them as kids playing and then cut to the fight, both of which do the job, but they're kind of a little bit lazy, and they're nowhere near as creative as this. But this got the exact same message, but just in such a kick-ass way that also didn't for one moment take away from the moment. It didn't like pause and go, just to remind you, these two are like childhood best friends. Maybe they had a crush on each other. Like, it's super sweet, the relationship they had, and now they're fighting to the death. It didn't like have to pause to do that, which is like so fucking cool. And again, like, you could maybe do that in live action because when we kind of say there's stuff you can't do in live action. An example is Scott Pilgrim versus the World does quite a lot of crazy anime and animation sort of stuff in live action, so it can be done. but that's kind of a straw poll of one example. I can't think of many other live action content where they try it and it works. Like,
and I mean, I feel like it's very different as well, because obviously Scott Pilgrim is meant to be set in like a like it's meant to have all of these video game aspects to it, you know. But if it like was a different film that wasn't set in that type of world or with that premise, it probably wouldn't work as well, just because you'd be like, well, hey, why is it like doing this?
Well, an example I can think of kind of on that note is the first Hulk movie. Is the first Hulk movie just Hulk and then the MCU one's Incredible Hulk? Or is it the other way around?
I don't know.
Whichever Ang Lee's Hulk, I think it is just called Hulk. That one has like a bunch of like comic book panels where like during an action sequence the screen will cut into different comic book panels, but they're all still live action shots, but like, you know, they're in a grid formation or whatever. And it doesn't
fucking terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Like, it's
awful.
like you can see the concept, you can see why someone might think that would be cool, but it just doesn't work. And it's that sort of thing. It's like, yes, you can try and do those kind of weird ideas in live action, but it's really hard to pull them off. And even when they do get pulled off, it might work better in animation. And yeah, so this just worked flawlessly. And I think that's a big part of it as well, is it's like, it's character driven animation. Like, it both feels so incredibly Jinx to change the animation style and have that kind of kick-ass hip-hop music, but it also feels really Echo in like the brief view we've got of Echo is this, you know, kind of rebel kind of street character, and so yeah, it fits that as well. So yeah, it was really, really good. And like, I when we use the phrase art, I think, you know, calling Arcane art, it's moments like that where you're like, that is just pure artistry of doing something that fucking cool. So yeah, and then episode 2 and episode 3 don't have that exact kind of change in animation, but they've still just got so many kick-ass moments in them. So
yeah, I think I kind of agree with what you said about how it definitely feels like it was made for Echo and Jinx, you know, like those two characters. It wouldn't really work with anyone else.
Like, even Vi, who is like not that far from those two, I don't think it would have suited her personally.
No. No, I agree. I don't know, should we go on and talk about the other fight scenes, or intersperse them with...
I'm trying to think of what else happened in the first episode of this act, because like that's the standout moment. And obviously, so it starts with Echo and the Firelights have captured Vi and Caitlyn, and then the plot is basically them deciding. Echo manages to convince them that he will take the orb to the council and present his argument as to why they should actually help out the Undercity. And then things go wrong on the bridge with Jinx. What's going on with Jinx during that episode? I'm trying to like backtrack.
I don't think...
Is that the episode where she tortures Silco with the stabby thing? Or is that the next episode?
Oh Christ, I don't know even.
Okay. But she's kind of been absent from Silco, and Silco is like trying to find her. And then the council are... Jace is being kind of edged closer to making weaponry from Hextech. And does Mel's mum show up in that episode or the next episode?
I think it's the next episode, because I think like the first one was just gonna like try and introduce the idea to Jace, and then the second one is when she arrives and it kind of like hammers home to him like what needs to be done.
Yeah, Mel's backstory was interesting. I think, jumping ahead, unfortunately, I have a feeling Mel's probably not going to be in the next season, which sucks if true, because I really like her character. But I think it's also cool to see a little bit more of the world than just it's kind of like when with Jace's origin story and seeing the magic in the first episode. It's cool to see these little glimpses of the wider League of Legends world as well. But yeah, so it all comes to a head though on the bridge. Jinx attacks. Vi was going to go back for Jinx, but then she goes back for Caitlyn when she hears the gunshots, and she ends up kind of rescuing Caitlyn and taking her off of the bridge, which causes Jinx to believe that Vi has abandoned her for Caitlyn. And then I think that's the end of the episode, right? Is the explosion on the bridge, basically.
Oh yeah, and Marcus, the absolute fucking asshole, died finally.
I don't remember who Marcus is. Jesus.
Marcus was the sheriff.
Oh, right, yeah. God,
the guy that literally fucked over everyone.
Yeah, but they did make him a little bit redeeming when he had his daughter. Like, just a little bit.
No, I hated him so much.
I feel bad for his daughter, though.
Yeah. I feel bad for his daughter, sure, but she had a terrible father.
100%.
He was a terrible person who I think had too good a death. Really, I think he died pretty quickly.
I mean, he had his arm blown off, and he was still alive for a bit. So.
I know, but still, man, like I wanted to see someone kill him in a painful way. Like I wanted to actually see him die, like because realistically, he's been a massive character throughout all of the episodes because he's just been playing both sides. And like,
if there's no Marcus, there's no Arcane.
Exactly, yeah. And like. He was such a dick that I really wanted to actually see someone like take him out, not just die in an explosion that killed a bunch of other people as well, and then him just slowly like fade. Like I was glad he was dead, but I wasn't satisfied with his ending.
Side note though, actually talking about that moment, so you were talking about how like Echo is a hero, but like changing the context slightly or changing the perspective slightly, he might not be. The fact that he has all of those robotic or mechanical firelights that are explosive, yeah, he's basically a terrorist at the same time. Like, he is a vigilante fighting Silco, but he has these explosive devices that he unleashes on Piltover guards. So, yeah.
I mean...
So like he's a hero, but he's in that same kind of realm as like realistically the Rebellion in Star Wars. They're the heroes, but also like they've caused quite a lot of chaos for just innocent people just living their lives under oppression. So like, you know,
yeah,
he's definitely a good guy, but like he's willing to go into that kind of murky gray area. Also, really cool, just like little foreshadowing when Vi's like, I've never seen so many firelights before. And then later you find out that like most of them are mechanical and they're bombs. You're like, oh, cool. That was like a cool little foreshadowing there. So,
yeah, I've got to say, I think I must be stupid or something because it didn't click with me that they were Echoes. I thought they were Jinxes.
I assumed that they're Echoes because they were mechanical firelights, but maybe they were hers.
Well, because at first I thought, oh yeah, like the firelights obviously are Echoes because they're firelights, but then I saw like the color on the wings and everything, and I was like, oh, so it was Jinx, because also she just kind of like walks through them like at the end, and I thought, well, Echo was caught up with them, so like why would he just explode everyone on the bridge?
I thought maybe it was a dead man's trigger or something, but yeah, maybe. I don't know. It could have been Jinx's because she's also been seen with some firelights in the show, and obviously in like the Imagine Dragons music video, you see one like come out of her mouth, which is fucking weird. So like maybe they were Jinx. I'll have to rewatch it and think about whose it could have been. But yeah,
and I also thought it might be Jinx to also sort of reflect her relationship with Echo again. You know, the fact that they both use the firelights.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It probably makes more sense if it was Echo, to be honest.
I think it makes sense either way, to be honest with you. But yeah, well, maybe I'll probably rewatch the show in one sitting, and I'll give you a verdict on what I think once I've rewatched it. Because I don't know about you, but I've only seen the last 3 episodes once. Same with the first, the middle 2. The only ones I've rewatched are the first 3. So
Yeah, I watched them last night, and I was still a little bit drunk when I watched them. So
um but yeah, so then in episode 2 of the batch, or I guess episode 8 overall, first of all, Vi and Caitlyn confirmed.
yeah,
They're a natural that they're into each other. That's cool. I have seen some people, and I feel like two straight white guys are probably not the best people to talk about this, but I have seen some people on the internet accuse Riot of queer baiting because they don't actually kiss or have sex in the show. But
yeah,
I again, probably not the best people to talk about this, but I personally feel like their relationship is very much on screen. Like, they might not have actually kissed or anything, but they're clearly into each other. There's no, like, cutting around that or anything.
I mean, like, yeah, realistically, not every relationship is going to move at supersonic speeds. Like so far they've really only had like a working relationship. Like, sure, they've gotten to know each other a little bit, and like they have that emotional connection. But why does that mean that they then have to like express that love in that way? Like I don't.
I just think with what's going on in the story, it's logical that there wasn't a place for it during those events because they're both so busy. And one of the comments that I saw on Twitter was someone saying, "Oh, but we had time for Jason Mel to have a sex scene." But one, the story's moving at a very different kind of rate to Vi and Caitlyn's, and two, Jason Mel's sex scenes kind of to show Jace's kind of obsession with power was my kind of takeaway on it because it's intercutting
I
with Victor's obsession with a different kind of power.
Yeah, I also felt like Mel was kind of like manipulating
Oh,
him like
100%.
along like all the way through, and I feel like you know giving him her body as well was more of kind of like oh yeah, I'm never gonna do anything against you, like I'm yours and blah blah blah, we're together, we're never gonna be separate. I feel like that was more of a manipulation tactic.
Mm.
And like with Caitlyn and Vi, I don't get that because they do truly like each other, and I feel like there is also, you know, a big thing at the end of it was at the end of episode 2 when Vi literally just says like, forget about me. Like their whole relationship hasn't been, like this lovey-dovey sort of everything's peaceful type of thing. Like they've been
The oil and water.
constantly, yeah, they've been constantly, you know, uh like fighting all these other different people and everything and trying to fight this injustice and trying to get to know each other at the same time. Like the whole thing is that, you know they are from different worlds, they are trying to become, one on the same level,
Mm.
but at the moment it's just not quite working out, and I feel like we probably will see their relationship get to that point in the next season.
I do think there is room to say it might be queer baiting, depending on if what happens next season, basically. Because what I can see happening next season, again jumping ahead a little bit, it's entirely possible that Caitlyn's mum is dead as well. In which case, if Vi's sister is the reason why Caitlyn's mum is dead, that might drive a bit of a divide in their relationship, which might delay them actually being in a relationship. But there's no reason to assume that Riot are going to spend an entire season with them not getting together or not. And,
Yeah,
so we'll have to wait and see, basically. But I don't think their relationship as presented on screen in season 1 was them going, oh, look, we'll appeal to LGBTQI plus people by having them on screen, but not actually have them be in a relationship so we can sell them to other audiences. I don't think it was that. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. And again, we're probably not the best people to talk about that, but that wasn't the impression I got.
I would agree with the queer baiting thing if, like, for example, they teased it all this season and then next season they were just like, now they're in heterosexual relationships.
Mm.
At that point I'd be like, okay, yeah, that was just kind of stupid,
Shitty.
bang out of order.
Yeah.
But for the moment, I'm just like, well, it's a type of relationship. Not everyone has the exact type of relationship where they will just go in and kiss each other immediately.
And realistically, they've only really had 3 episodes together because they don't have episode 4 together because they only meet at the very end of episode 4. And then for most of the last 2 episodes of this season, they're not together either. Or not this season, this act. They're not together either because they've at that point split off and gone down different routes. So yeah, they're not actually spending that much time together in the grand total of the show versus Jace and Mel spend the majority of the season together. So again, if you're comparing the two, it is different in that regard too. But yeah, I don't know. As I said, I personally don't think that. Hopefully, it doesn't go that way. But I think that the relationship was really cool, and they are clearly two people who have feelings for each other. They just don't have the time right now because there's a crazy psychotic terrorist lady who's one of their sisters on the run. So yeah.
I'd also just like to put a quick disclaimer and say I personally prefer movies and TV shows and everything that have no romantic relationships whatsoever because I just personally find them boring. So like I'm on the level with the queer baiting thing if they end up fucking them over. I personally just don't care about relationships. I'd rather see like the actual sort of like other sort of more platonic relationships, like the relationship between Jace and Victor. I'm really interested in because I think that's like relationships like that, where it's two people trying to come together to actually like create something and building that bond over time and whatever. I think that's much more interesting than just, oh, I love you, let me kiss you. And so yeah, I just don't really give a shit. But
yeah, I think for me it's as long as the relationship is interesting, which so far all the relationships in this show have been, platonic or otherwise. But for me, the thing that I'm kind of constantly interested in, I guess, is I want non-heterosexual relationships to be treated on screen the same as heterosexual relationships. And there are plenty of heterosexual relationships in other media that are very similar to Vi and Caitlin's relationship so far in the show, which is like they have feelings for each other, but this isn't the time for it, sort of thing, because there are bigger things going on. So, yeah, as I said, hopefully they don't end up actually queer baiting next season, but I don't think this season is an example of that personally. But we're not experts, so
yeah. But just to clarify my point, I think all the relationships should be treated the same. I just prefer if there weren't any.
What else happened in the midpoint? So they present to the council, and the council basically says, "Yeah, no, we're just gonna make peace with Silco," and so Vi breaks up with Caitlin, oil and water, and then goes and finds Jace's workshop, which how did she find Jace's workshop is a little bit surprising, but oh well.
I mean, she's Vi.
She's a resourceful woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, she then just like helps herself to the mining gloves and asks Jace, the pretty boy, whether they want to go get back at Silco, which leads on to a fucking badass fight scene in episode 8, where Jace is using his hammer and Vi is using her punch gauntlet things. Yeah, that was a really fucking cool scene.
It was so fucking good. Like, it was mind-blowing to me how good it was. Like, obviously, as I said before, the one between Jinx and Echo, the art style change reminded me a lot of anime, but so did Vi and Jace. It like in a different way, like how sort of hard and fast the combat was.
There were definitely there was like a moment when I think it's her first punch, when she like jumps down, she punches one of them, and like it like goes super slow-mo, and then her like gauntlet like kind of like buckles, and then it speeds up suddenly as he goes flying away, and I was like, that's very anime.
Yeah, it's oh god, it was fantastic. Like I'm just gonna be gushing over this for ages now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's probably one of the best fight scenes that I've seen in like a long time. And it's weird because obviously when I say fight scenes, I guess like fight scenes like in stuff that we're most accustomed to, things like Daredevil and Punisher, our favorites. It's so different to that, but it's just also so fucking good.
Mm.
Like I'm never really that amazed by fight scenes in sort of anime and stuff because I'm just like, oh, it's all kind of the same. There are a couple of moments and things, that really uh like impress me. Like a lot of the stuff in My Hero Academia, especially the movies. I think I talked about the latest one a couple of podcasts ago.
It's pretty good for an
And
anime.
yeah, yeah. uh and also One Punch Man. I really love the fight scenes in that. I mean, I would do like my favorite anime ever. Um, but in a different style of animation, um, I just thought it was so good how they did it. Like it really gets over the impact of everything that hits. Even like the slashes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like, oh shit. Like I think there was one scene. It's not in the Vi and Jace fight, but basically in the well, it has to be second episode.
I think it's the end of the
When
second episode.
Yeah, when Silco is in his office and like these other sort of like I guess like I think they're chem barons.
Something like that.
And they come in and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna fucking kill you and take over your operation because you're dog shit. And then like his like right hand woman
Who's still
is
alive. Like,
yeah,
we totally assumed she was dead last act. But...
yeah. um yeah, she's like we're led to believe that she's betrayed him, and then she like goes and stands next to him and kind of like draws her sword from her arm, and Silco's like, oh, I still believe in loyalty, and then she just goes whoom, and like slices like this guy's like I guess iron or like metal jaw and like neck and like part of the chair or something. She slices like a few things, and I was just like, holy shit. Like you could like I felt that, and I feel like that was just part of the course of like all of Arcane. Like pretty much all of the combat, you could feel the impact of everything.
And that particular moment as well I fucking loved because it tells you a lot about her again, through the animation and through the what's presented on screen. We're told so much about the character's mentality in that moment because she also cut Silco's cup, and
Oh yeah,
that means she was so close to cutting Silco as well. And you're like, that's how close she was to betraying Silco. Like she didn't walk. I don't think she walked into that room knowing who she was going to side with. And like it's that moment when his cup falls and he's like clearly like kind of in his head he's like, oh, I might be about to die here, and he's still kind of like
yeah,
adrenaline's coming down. Is like it's such a good moment to just like pretty much silently tell you entirely her headspace and his headspace. And it's just like, again, just so well crafted because they could have so easily just had her like cut the guy down and be like, and then have that conversation afterwards, and that would have got the same point across, but nowhere near as effective, right? So
yeah. And also, I just thought it was like really cool as well when afterwards he was like, "Oh, did you think about it?" And she was like, "Nah, not for a second." And I was just like, "You liar! You're in your head being like, could I just end him now?"
Mm-hmm.
I honestly thought after that she was gonna like pick the lighter up and then kill him and be like, "Oh, well, I'm taking over now."
Yeah.
But I'm glad she didn't because I think you kind of see that too much in a lot of different media. I think something that I really like about Arcane is that like subverts your expectations very well.
Mhm.
Like they take a lot of the predictability out of shows like Arcane and turn it on its head and come up with different like routes and options for characters that you might not think of but fit perfectly.
It's like, I would say a lot of the show has felt very predictable, but there's just small little tweaks to it that change it. And another great little example of that is before the scene we were just talking about, when Silco goes to have a meeting with the Chem Barons, and he does the whole, like, he's gassing the room, and you fully work out what's going on, and he has the final mask, and like the guy's on the floor gasping for air, the guy with the golden jaw, and Silco's got the final mask, and you're like, he's not going to give it to him. And then he puts it on, you're like, oh yeah, he's not going to give it to him. And then he still gives it to him, and you're like, oh, okay, he does have like a smidgen of mercy, but like he's made the point. It's just like little moments like that where you think you know exactly where it's going, because it's like playing on very common trends, and then it just like slightly tweaks it in a really interesting way.
Going back to the Vi and Jace fight, I think like I'm honestly lost for words for how good that fight was, and I don't think I'm even gonna bother just continuing to talk about the actual fight scene, just because I'm just gonna be gushing, as I said, and it would just be exactly the same thing over and over. But what I do want to talk about is the fact that Jace killed a kid.
Yes, and like repeatedly, this show has had me having moments where I'm like, "Oh, this show is pretty fucking dark," and then you kind of forget about it for a little bit. You're like, yeah, it's it's teeny, but it's like not that. And then it goes, "Oh no, we're really fucking dark again." And that was one of the moments. Was just kid just gets shot and then just like falls for like a good 15 seconds, and then just hits the ground with a thud, and you're like, "Okay, not a show for kids, got it."
But then he's like still alive at the bottom for a few seconds, and I was like, "Fucking hell, this kid's got something about him."
He would be mush in real terms, but
but yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Like, I genuinely did not see that coming.
No, not at all. And I think it puts such an interesting element to Jace, which is that obviously like now he's like fully anti-war, but again, skipping ahead a little bit, he's probably going to be fully pro-war next season, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like, the thing is, like, again, like all the characters are so well written. I really dislike Jace, but I also really like Jace. Like, he's such a dick, but he has been manipulated, and also he is kind of a good guy, but he is kind of an elitist racist guy, but he's also kind of like, and it's just such a and all of the characters that are kind of bad guys are likable. Like Jinx is an obvious one because she is the villain, but she's also one of the protagonists, and you love her. But like even Silco is just such a good villain, and like we'll get to it when we start talking about the final episode. But like Silco basically becomes Vander, a worse Vander, literally. But basically Vander, and it's just like it's so good.
Yeah, I definitely want to get onto that because there are a couple of characters, Silco included, that I specifically wanted to talk about. But yeah, we'll leave that for the third episode talk.
I'm just trying to think what else is there. So Mel's mum, horny fucking bitch.
Yeah, like I felt really uncomfortable watching those scenes. Like I because as I said, I don't really like relationships. I really don't like sex scenes in shows. Like part of the reason I hated Jessica Jones was because I thought it was just a fuck fest. And I really like I don't think sex scene, like I'll give the Mel and Jace one kind of a pass because I stick to what I think, which is I think it was trying to portray like a manipulation tactic, and I guess it adds to their rocky sort of relationship. That I don't know how I feel about their relationship, because
I feel the same way about it as I do with Silco and Jinx, which is I think Mel's 100% manipulating Jace, and she's got her own agenda, but she does care about Jace. And like again, it's that like, she's a shitty person for doing that to Jace, but she does care about Jace, and she wants Jace to like succeed, and she like cares about his well-being. She even cares about Victor, but she's also manipulative, and it's just like, oh, it's just like, I shouldn't like you, but part of me does, because you've got enough redeeming factors to be interesting, and you know, but also you're kind of a shitty person.
Yeah, I think I agree. But yeah, I'll kind of give that one a free pass. But generally, I think sex scenes can be avoided, and they can just come up with better ways of showing what they need to show, and especially with like just really horny scenes like the ones with I guess Queen, is she Queen Medada? Or
Empress or
whoever,
whatever, yeah.
yeah, like Mel's mum.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, that's just so uncomfortable to me. Like, why am I watching this?
But I think she's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable as an audience member, so I think that's intended. But I do get what you mean, and I think post Game of Thrones, not post all of Game of Thrones, but post when Game of Thrones started, there was an influx in television of, do you know how we make ourselves edgy and we get older audiences to be engaged? Sex and gore. And it's like, there are smarter ways to do this, and like Game of Thrones does have some moments where it uses those two things very effectively. It also has some moments where it's just very, very lazy. So yeah,
I mean, I like the gore. Like the gore is fine for me, but it's just the sex stuff.
Sure, but like, I can't remember who gets beheaded in this act of Arcane, but someone gets beheaded at some point, and it's done in a like brutal but not particularly gory way. I'm trying to think of who gets beheaded now. That's really
Someone got beheaded.
Yeah, I can't remember who did the beheading, so like it's impossible for me to narrow it down. But someone with a blade beheaded someone. Oh, it was Mel's mum beheading the woman in the flashback.
Oh yes,
Yeah, and it's done in like a very brutal way, but there's not a lot of gore to it, and so you know, and gore can be used. I have no issues with gore, but you don't always need to use it, and that was again like just a really effective way to show the brutality of that moment.
Now imagine that scene again, but with blood just splurting all over the place.
Yeah, but
I think.
And going back to Game of Thrones, you know, Game of Thrones again used a lot of gore and a lot of sex, but there were moments when they didn't use any gore, basically, and one of them was, spoilers alert for Game of Thrones season 1, Ned's beheading. You don't actually see it. You see like the split second before it happens, and then you see the aftermath, but like the blades coming down his neck, and then it cuts to Arya's reaction.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. Anyways. Anything else super awesome happen in the second act?
I mean, I guess we could talk about
second episode even.
Yeah, I guess we could talk a little about Victor and Singed.
Oh yeah. I have something to talk about Singed when we get to the third episode, but yeah, no, that was a really interesting dynamic, and boy, Victor's story is just so fucking tragic.
Yeah,
and it's gonna get worse, isn't it? Yeah,
pretty much. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I really love the character of Victor. I think they have done him so brilliantly. I think.
Side note, by the way, in relation to Game of Thrones, I'm pretty sure the voice actor for Victor portrays Dany's brother. Yeah,
yeah.
Much more likable in this show.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think it's really awesome to see kind of like a side character, because to me, like, I guess him and Heimerdinger, they very much feel like side characters to me. Like they kind of get like forgotten about for quite a lot of time, and like their stories feel so separate to everyone else's. But I also know that it's gonna come full circle, and they're all gonna sort of like come together in the end again.
Yeah.
And like with Victor, you know, you really do get the impression that he is like this recluse, you know, as opposed to Jace, his partner, who is, you know, the Wonder Boy, you know, the face of Piltover and
I mean,
Man of Progress.
when Jace does his speech in Act 2, just got a Discord message. I apologize. I don't even see from where, but okay. When Jace gives his speech in Act 2, he asks Victor whether Victor wants to come up on stage with him because he wants to like credit Victor as well. They're together, and Jace wants people to know that, and Victor rejects that. He's like, no, I can't, sort of thing. It's not for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And like the contrast between the two is amazing. And obviously, I like as I was saying about Victor being a side character, I feel like that's almost on purpose as well, because they make Jace like more of the center of attention actually in the show, and you only get to see like small parts of Victor. And then like you start seeing him become this thing, and I even feel like they start giving him more screen time again, and like even take away some of Jace's.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think it's brilliant how they've done him. Like the whole, you know, tragedy of his like sort of disease and whatever. You know, opposing his wish to help other people. You know, like you really feel for him. You can't help but feel for him because so far everything that he's done, and also what happens in episode 3, I guess we'll go on to talk about. But so far everything he's done, he is shown to be like selfless. Like even himself, like he wants to live so that he can help other people. And like the fact that he's going to be driven to this point where he is going to become, I guess, more radical in his views, like you can understand where that's coming from, and it's not even really his fault. Like it's all just happenstance that it's going on.
And I've intentionally not looked up Victor. Like I've looked up quite a few of the characters who I know become playable characters in League. I haven't looked up Victor, kind of just because he's one of the most interesting characters, and I don't want to know whether he becomes a hero or a villain or anything like that. So I really know nothing about where it's going forward, but the feeling I get is that he's probably going to become a villain, and it's just like, like out of all the characters, like honestly, the only one who even comes close is Jinx. I genuinely don't know whose backstory currently is more tragic, because Jinx's one is pretty fucking tragic, but it's almost like we see Victor's one play out in real time, while Jinx's one we have that time jump. So like it's a little bit more tragic to see it play out in real time, but also, obviously Jinx's one would have taken years, so I'm fine with the time jump. But yeah, just and I unfortunately can't remember his assistant's name, but when his assistant died, it was just
Skye.
Yeah, that's it, Skye. Because she's the little girl who sees him playing with a boat in his little flashback as well, isn't she? Or like that's what it? I think that's what's implied. Yeah. Yeah, I think you might even hear her get called away, and I think she is the same character. But
okay.
So like that just makes it extra tragic as well, and it's just God, just like, and again, like you totally knew where it was going as soon as she started coming to the room, but it's just like, and Jace isn't going to but Jace isn't going to keep his promises. He's not going to destroy the hex core, so things are only going to get worse. And
I've again, I think that just reinforces how good a character Victor is, because even though we see him becoming, you know, something that he doesn't even like at this point, you know, like he knows it's dangerous. After, I mean, I was going to talk about it in like when we went on to episode 3, but seeing as we mention it now, like when Skye gets, I don't know, obliterated, like you know, he like he really is upset about it. Like I fully expected that to happen, and him just kind of be like, oh well, it happened, I'm just gonna continue, you know, or like when she went up to him, I expected him to like
lash out or something.
Yeah, and like he didn't, and like it really took me by surprise, because it was like, this is a character that really actually does want the best for people, especially the people that he cares about. And like that just makes it all the more tragic.
particularly because, again, my assumption is that Victor's going to end up a villain. And I'm pretty sure, because I have looked up him, but when the first act came out, Jace becomes a hero.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that at this point. Like, it's going to be so awful if Jace does become a hero. If he stays the sort of person he is at the moment, he is absolutely on the path to become a villain as well. And it's just like two different versions. So if the world ends up viewing him as a hero afterwards, it's just going to be so extra tragic because, like, Victor has, like, you know, the way to hell is paved with good intentions. That's 100% Victor's story so far, but it's also Jace's story, just in a more like traditional way. And it's just, ugh.
You see, I think something that Arcane has done really well, which it's kind of hard to tell from like the lore that's just written on wiki pages and stuff, because I think if you look at Jace's like bio from the game or whatever, it says, oh, he's the hero of Piltover and blah blah blah. From like watching Arcane, I feel like they've changed the meaning. Like if you hadn't seen the series or whatever and you just looked at a bio, you'd be like, oh, he is a hero. But then you look into it a bit more and he is the hero of Piltover. Now we know more about Piltover and Zorn. Clearly, in a lot of eyes, people fucking hate Piltover because they suck and they're racist and all of this,
Although,
so in
and it's one of the things I do hope Arcane Season 2 does a little bit more, is what we've seen of Piltover has basically just been the elite of Piltover. There are presumably normal people in Piltover who are not like that to the same extent, maybe. And like we've seen a lot more of Zorn, so I do hope we do get to see a little bit more, because like, again, if you just change the perspective of the show slightly and just showed the kind of Silco-like characters of Zorn, you'd be like, oh, Zorn's full of scum criminals, blah, 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 blah. But there are normal, good people there as well. So I want to see a little bit more of Piltover like that as well. But
but yeah, like I'm starting to think, well, maybe they have just kind of changed the meaning of it slightly. And yeah, okay, sure, he's the hero of Piltover, but does anyone else in the world regard him as a hero, or is he just being, like I know I've seen the cinematic in which another character, Garen, is in it, and Silas, and like Silas is kind of like portrayed as this villain, but really he's just trying to like free people from living in this like tyrannical kingdom that opposes magic users and locks them up, and like to that kingdom, Garen is the hero, but to all the people rebelling, he's basically just an asshole. And I feel like, there is a possibility that could also be Jace's story, and like Victor, he could carry on and become something that, yeah, sure, a lot of people might think is villainous, but the audience might not agree with that. It could all just be up to interpretation and change on your own personal beliefs and stuff, which I personally really like in media, because I like being able to draw my own conclusions. I like having a lot of gray areas so that you can, come up with your own sort of narrative, I guess.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting as well, and is we see Jace drew himself as a superhero with a magic hammer before he makes the hammer. He could go the Superman route of being like an actual hero, or he could go the Homelander route of he's a hero sort of thing. And like, it probably won't be that extreme if they do make him a bit more villainous, but like, there's a lot of room to take it, and it will probably feel very natural. And I think that's the thing at the end of the day so far with the show, is that every character has felt so human and realistic and just believable and multifaceted, that I just can't wait for season 2. And then I think it's towards the end of episode 2 of this batch, or it might be episode 3, I don't remember, is Vi's Bar Brawl.
I think that's think that's the end of season 2.
Episode 2. We keep on using season 2 or act 2 in the wrong. Yeah. So her brawl with I really can't remember Silco's right hand name, unfortunately.
I can't,
because I don't think they say her name a lot. But cyborg arm lady. That's another great fight.
Yeah, it was. I kind of like. I really did enjoy the fight, but I did kind of feel like, like we're seeing this again. Like, I know it's cool to see them with both upgraded weapons and everything, but especially because she still didn't end up killing her. I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, I can understand why you maybe felt that way, but I think it's cool because Vi fighting Silco would never be satisfying because Silco's not like this super butch guy or anything. So like, it's not going to be that big of a fight between the two of them. That's like seeing Batman beat up the Joker. It's like, yeah, that's fine, but like, Joker's more of a mental villain for Batman than a physical one. But that lady betrayed Vanda and helped cause all of this and has already beaten Vi once in a fist fight. So like, they do actually have like now this rivalry, and she's a physical threat to Vi, so it works in that sense, I think. But
like, don't get me wrong, I got it, and also I think it was very representative of just Vi letting off steam, especially because the gauntlets literally give off like steam,
Yeah.
like when it like there's a second where she's just standing there and she like yells and like the gauntlet gives off steam. Like, well, it's very clear what's happening, like she's very angry, she yells just like out of frustration a lot of times, and I was like, okay, I get it, like I get that's what the scene is presenting, but if this is Silco's right hand woman and she is such a threat, why just leave her there?
Because she got knocked out.
Okay, she's gonna come too, and then what? She's just gonna be a problem again.
Yeah, but no, Vi got knocked out by Jinx.
Oh,
that was them, right? At the end of that fight.
Yeah. I completely forgot.
So that must mean that happened in episode 3 then. That's the only way that makes sense.
No, because we enter episode 3 with Vi all tied up.
Wait, no, because it's a 40-minute episode. I can't remember the order of things anymore. I only watched this yesterday. What the fuck?
Yeah,
I think that must be near the beginning of episode 3, and then she gets knocked out, and then she comes to later on in episode 3. That must be it. In which case, what was Vi doing for the rest of episode 2? No, because episode 2 begins with her presenting to the council and everything. Yeah. So like, episode 1 ends with the Echo versus Jinx fight. Episode 2 must be like towards the end is when she fights with Jace. That must be towards the end of episode 2. And then, yeah, that must be how it goes. But I feel like I'm forgetting loads of stuff that happened during these 3 episodes now.
I feel like quite a lot happened in episode 3, though.
Well, I think she was probably tied up for like the last 20 minutes or so. But...
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, everyone must have been captured during episode 3 by Jinx, right? So
yeah,
Caitlyn gets captured and Silco gets captured, which means Silco had his meeting with Jace in episode 3. Yeah, there's just a lot happened in this act. There's a lot to remember.
Shit.
So okay, let's talk a little bit more about what Silco's been up to then.
Okay, yeah. So Silco, I think, as you said, he basically becomes Vanda, and I that was mind blowing to me. I thought that was so well done. The fact that he went through all this trouble, to become the person that he is, because he really thought that he saw differently than Vanda, but in the end, he realized that he was right. Yeah.
Well, I don't even think he thinks that Vanda's right. I think he's just like I don't think he comes to self-realization that he has become Vander. He just has. Like I'm not sure he became self-aware enough or not.
He definitely did. Because when he was like drinking at the fountain and he poured one out for his homie Vander, uh, he even said he said something like ah I get it now, brother, or something like that.
Okay, that was that was the thing I was going to ask you about. So he says, "I get it now, brother." So again, in a similar way to how like it wasn't 100% clear whether Jinx and or Powder and Vi were sisters, is Silco actually Vander's brother, or is it more like brothers in arms or stuff?
Brothers in arms, I think, because in the interaction between Silco and Vander, like Vander's kind of like sat down, like slumped outside, or like slumped against like a railing or something, and Silco's like sort of like crouching down in front of him, saying, "Oh, you still don't see the full picture," or whatever. And Vander's like, you and my brother or whatever. I think it very heavily implies that they just had like a brother in arms type of thing,
which makes sense.
But yeah, I thought it was really well done how they made Silco like this just absolute asshole in the first few episodes, and then by the end of it, I was like, I kind of feel even more sympathetic towards him, just because like he did kind of realize that Vander was, Vander had the right idea by protecting his family, and the fact that he really did care about Jinx, and like in his weird, twisted way, he really did care about what happened to the lanes, like especially with that meeting where he gasses them all and whatever. Like that wasn't just gas, that was like their everyday lives. Yeah, like that was their everyday lives before he came along and changed things. So like even in his weird twisted way, he really did want what was best for his people and the nation of Zorn.
I'm just gonna say it here. I think he is probably one of the best villains who thinks he's a hero that I've ever seen. And again, you know how big of a Daredevil fan I am. I think he's done better than the Kingpin in that particular regard of thinking he's the hero of his own story. Because like with the Kingpin, you're like, yeah, but you kind of know that you're a villain, sort of thing. But like, but yeah, with Silco, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's just such a fucking well written character, like from top to bottom, and I think the thing that's interesting to think about as well is we don't really see any of Vander before he's the Vander that we know. The only thing we see is his attack on the bridge, which we see very briefly, his gauntlets covered in blood, and he basically like immediately drops that all to look after Powder and Vi. Presumably he knew Powder and Vi's parents. That's just kind of an assumption that I have. And we obviously see that he's willing to kill his brother to keep the peace. For all we know, before he became the Vander that we know in the show, Vander was just as bad as Silco. In fact, to run alongside Silco, he probably was. Like, unless Silco massively changed as well, presumably they are like basically on par with each other in that regard. So that just makes a really interesting dynamic as well, which is that like, yeah, the two sides of the same coin. And so then we go into episode 3, I guess, because I can't think of much else that happened. And I guess very quickly, Vi's transformation under Singed.
Jinx's
transformation under Singed.
Cool. So before we go on to talk about Jinx's transformation, actually, I just wanted to quickly say that I'm kind of disappointed we didn't get to see more interaction between Jace and Silco. Because I think they were two sides of the same coin. in that Jace was very much, doing what he thought was best for his people. And in doing so, he made a few mistakes, including, you know, going or starting a war, and, killing a kid, whatever, and sort of coming to terms with his principles and everything. And Silco was basically doing the same thing. So, like, and I feel like it was interesting because they came to that agreement like so quickly. Like you could tell that there was like
An
maybe
understanding.
less so, yeah, there was an understanding. They both knew that what they were doing was right for their own people. And like I'm upset we didn't get to see more of interaction between them, because I feel like they could have had like a good conflict, but then kind of realized in the end that they both wanted what was right for their people.
I 100% agree, but I have no idea how they would have squeezed that in with the 9 episodes. It's so jam packed that I don't know where, unless they like extended the finale to like an hour long or something. But I think as well it's so telling of like Jace's character progression, because obviously like before we've seen a lot of the things he's done have been directly manipulated by Mel, and it's almost been like her telling him what to say. But we don't see any of her telling him to go meet with Silco. You don't see any of like her like whispering in his ear beforehand. And he says the line about like taking Jinx rather than Silco, of like you can't make a deal with a snake and then chop off its head or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, that feels like a very Mel line, but she didn't tell him. He's learned very quick this kind of little political game that he's playing. So yeah, that was an interesting moment for him for sure. But yeah, no, I completely agree. It would have been really interesting to see a little bit more of an interaction between them. Also, I think I finally understand the geography of Piltover and Zorn.
Oh yeah.
I think you've got the bridge, and then that is Zorn, but then below Zorn is the Undercity, which is, or I guess not Zorn, but like, the poor district, and then below that is the Undercity, which is like even worse off, and that's where like everyone is basically in the shit. Because when Silco like goes to visit the other Chem Barons or whatever, that seems to be like they take an elevator up from the Undercity to like near the skyline, but it's still like the territory. So I think that's the general vibe, but I don't know for certain. Either way, I still don't care that much.
and just to extend what I was saying about Silco and Jace, obviously Silco then like he knows it's a good deal and that he should take it, but he wouldn't give Jinx up. And I feel like that kind of flips it on its head then, because that's when he fully becomes Vanda pretty much. And Jace is kind of like then like for the moment they were on the same page and they were like basically the same person. But then you see one of them sort of go down. In my opinion, that was Jace, because he was the one that has been making like mistakes and everything, and like this is kind of like a last sort of coup, and so he has to sort of, it's almost like a type of deal that Silco would have made. And then Silco goes up because obviously he's realized actually it doesn't matter all that much to him, because he actually really cares about this one person. And like I feel like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, let's put it this way: rewind several years ago, Silco would have absolutely made that deal if it was give up Vanda. Like without the like Vanda betrayal thing, I feel like he would have done it without a second thought. But he's been softened by Jinx.
Yeah.
You were gonna say something.
I can't remember, so okay. I guess just episode 3. I think this episode literally is just gonna be on Arcane, because I mean we've already gone for quite a while now, and
a lot, and I'm just looking at the topics we posted, and both of them are Arcane related. Oh, there is one little thing actually just before that, but we'll get to that at the very end. There's one non-Arcane related topic that we've kind of bookmark to talk about. So yeah, I mean it's worth talking about though, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially these last three, you know, like there's just so much to go over.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing as we've been sort of going into depth with characters and everything, one character that I really want to talk about is Heimerdinger, because he is linked to so many of the characters. As you see, like it slowly gets revealed to you pretty much. You know, like first of all, you're like, oh, okay, so Jace was at the academy where Heimerdinger was at, so they already sort of know each other a little bit. And then it's revealed that Victor is his apprentice, and then it gets revealed that Singed was also his apprentice. And so you've got these four characters, all with different motives and everything, you know, and
now basically Echo is essentially his new apprentice.
Yeah, and Echo, and so you see all these different characters, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that pays off for Heimerdinger, because obviously Singed is insane. Victor, like I feel like he took on most of what Heimerdinger said in the beginning, but he's kind of like going his own way now, and so
I think the thing he's disregarded is the safety precautions.
Yeah,
but he probably is rethinking that now. But for most of this show, he's kind of disregarded that element, and it's going to be interesting to see whether Echo follows Heimerdinger's advice, because I imagine if Heimerdinger is going to help him develop some time travel tech, Heimerdinger's still probably going to be like, we need to be very careful before, you know, we don't know the ramifications, blah, 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 and I wonder if Echo's actually going to heed those words or not.
I don't think so. No, like seeing what we've seen of him, I don't think so. I think he'll just be like, cool, and just, you know, do it. But, and then obviously you got Jace, who was like basically a colleague for the latter half of the series until he absolutely fucked him over and got him fired from his position. So
do you know what could be an interesting thing though, actually thinking about it? What if Heimerdinger's point of view changes, seeing what happens at the end of season 1, going into season 2, whether he's like, actually no, I was wrong, because I was telling everyone to be cautious and no one was, and this happened. So now there's not a time for like being overly cautious. We need to help stop this from getting out of control. So actually, Echo, let's just do it. So maybe his perspective is going to be changed, which would be an interesting way to take it.
I think definitely it will change, but only because it has to change. Because as you said, before it was only a possibility of this happening. Now it has happened, and now he's like, well, fuck, you know, like there's no point in just saying, well, I told you so. Like, might as well actually do something against it.
I really hope the first shot of season 2 is the explosion happening and Heimerdinger seeing it and just going, oh fuck.
Yeah, that would be amazing. But yeah, like I think his character arc is going to be something to look out for in the second one, because you know he didn't really have much of one in this season. It was mainly just him sort of like prepping all the other characters to go and do their own thing, and then him just kind of getting shafted.
Basically, like his only character progression was basically in the final episode, which was good, like what we saw, but like yeah, like I'd agree, like he's not had a lot of character progression in this show, which is not, doesn't feel like they've kind of forgotten him or anything. It's not a negative, but I think it's been him kind of, he's very much been a kind of background character, even more so than characters like Victor.
And I really do feel like my perspective on him has changed quite a lot throughout the series. Like even when he hasn't been like in it, I feel like the moments he has been in have actually been really impactful. You know, like in one of the first council meetings where he's like, I've seen what this type of thing can do. Like we can't, you know, like you can tell the pain, you know, that he's experienced by using it. And you know, they make a really, well, they do a really good job of making all the characters' points like seem positive, you know. And like at the time I feel like there was this battle, obviously, between Heimerdinger and Jason Victor. They were like saying one thing, he was saying another, and Jace's points at the time seemed to outweigh Heimerdinger's. So I was like, oh well, Heimerdinger's just being a bit of a Heimerding dong, like. um,
Yeah.
And like, oh, he's in the way of progress. They can use all of this like magic stuff to help people. Why listen to this old guy, blah blah blah. But then as the series goes on and you see the type of destruction it can cause and everything, and you really just take a moment to think, like, I read a comment on YouTube as well which really drove this home for me, which was Heimerdinger basically witnessed a nuclear war where like tons of people died and lives got screwed up. He survived a nuclear war, and this comment said seeing that gem is like him watching a new nuclear bomb be built in front of his very eyes.
Well, I guess to take that kind of that allegory, it would be like, showing my lack of history knowledge, I apologize. I want to say maybe his name was Truman, the guy who created the nuclear bomb. Fastos. That was a bad joke. Imagine the guy who created the nuclear bomb, and then it was used, and he said, I have become death. Then moving to Russia, and then seeing them pursue nuclear fission as like a new power source, and just being like, no, like, let me explain to you what could happen, Chernobyl, blah 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 blah, and then just being completely ignored. It's kind of that sort of thing. It's like, it's not necessarily a weapon at this point, but it's still dangerous. Like, it's still an incredibly dangerous thing to use, and he was right, but also he was wrong at the same time. Like, he's both right and wrong, and it's really like, yeah. It's fascinating that I don't think he was right in terms of things like the hex gates and everything are really, really impressive, and obviously to be able to stop Silco's goons who are using Shimmer, they did need some of the hex tech, but at the same time it's only going to get worse. So
I think that's kind of what I was getting at, is that it's really good that you can see it from all the different perspectives. And part of the reason why I'm like, oh well, Heimerdinger's wrong, especially, is because think about what could have happened if he actually decided to just help them and show that he was to be trusted and that he would help them out and whatever. At that point he might have been able to have enough influence over them to take it in a more safe direction, but instead he was like, I don't want a part of this, you guys can just fuck off and put it in the bin. And so they lost faith in him because they didn't think he had faith in them.
And then by the time that it's Act 2 and he's saying, we need to be being more cautious, don't reveal this tech, blah 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 blah, they're already at that point where they're like, this old man, blah, blah, he was wrong the first time, he's wrong this time, sort of thing. Yeah, God, like, it's just, the more characters we think about, the more I'm just like, they're so well written. It's just, everyone is so well written. I can't think of a single character that I dislike the writing for in this show, which is just, an impressive feat.
Yeah. I can think of one.
Okay.
Marcus, because I just fucking hate him.
But it wasn't badly written. You were just supposed to fucking hate him. But yeah, no, fair. Okay, so the final episode has a very like Death of the Family, Batman Death of the Family vibe, because it's Jinx. She captures Caitlin in a very kind of horror movie sort of way. She captures Silco and she captures Vi, and then it all comes to a head when they're all tied up in the remnants of the cannery. And you know how last week I was saying, I don't know how they're going to bring it to a satisfying end. That was how to bring it to a satisfying end. Yeah. It's like, there's not closure, but there's almost closure, and like it's horrific and it's heartbreaking, and it's just it's weird as well, because obviously, like, I know Caitlyn's a hero in League of Legends, but like, there was still just like this tiny minuscule moment. I was like, oh, maybe they might just break away from the canon entirely when she's lifting up the thing. I was like, maybe they'll just completely subvert our expectations. Just be like, this is a completely different timeline. But no, it's not Caitlyn's head. It's a cupcake.
Yeah.
Which in a way is Caitlyn, if you think about
it. Well, do you know what? I didn't actually think about that.
No, I just thought about that just now.
I wonder if they did that on purpose. I mean, surely they must have, unless that was just like a massive coincidence.
Either way, whoever came up with that idea will claim that it was an intentional decision.
Yeah. I thought that whole scene was just really good. Like I was gripped. Like I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, obviously, I had a suspicion that Vi and Caitlyn were going to survive, and Jinx, but I like all throughout it, I was like, my God, I don't want any of these characters to die. Like even at that point, you know, after everything we've seen of Silco and everything, I was like, it's such a like it was a massive moment, you know, because even the deal between Silco and Jace, all of that depended on what was happening in that moment. This one person was deciding the fate of a whole city, pretty much a whole nation, and I just thought, fuck me, that is like incredible to think about.
The moment that's really telling as well is like, again, you don't want to like Silco. Like he is a villain, and you know he's a bad guy, and he's manipulative and all of that. But his final moments, where he has literally nothing to gain from being manipulative, are to tell Jinx not to cry and that it's okay, which just really hammers home the fact that he did care about her the whole time. And it's just like, it's moments like that where you're just like, fuck me, like just like, I don't think I should like you, but I do. Like you've got again those redeeming factors that just yeah.
I think with Silco as well, like I got a little bit confused in that scene, because obviously with Jinx like kind of like losing her mind and like seeing everything and whatever, there was quite a lot of dialogue in those moments of like, you know, Vi and Silco competing for her, you know, like sanity, I guess. And as a viewer, I didn't know if they were actually saying those things or if that was just in Jinx's head, because the stuff that Silco was saying, it sounded really manipulative. You know, like it sounded like he basically wanted her to, you know, go and do what he might have wanted her to do before he kind of came to the realization that, yeah, she was his daughter. He really cared about her. Because then you see that change, you know, as soon as he's dying, like you can really tell, you know, how much he cared about her. And like, it made me just think like, was he actually saying those things before? Because like there's sudden change of heart. It didn't seem like that was the type of guy he was anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
One side note, Clagor got really shafted this show, didn't he?
Yeah.
After his death, it's just like he's like a tiny little doll, and Milo's like a full-scale doll, and Milo's the one. I get it, because he was the one who was antagonistic towards Powder, but like my boy Clagor deserves to be there as well sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, side note, do you think this is, I guess, more to do with the scene on the bridge just before the Echo fight? Do you think that one of the art directors or like concept artists or whatever was a fan of Don't Starve? Because Milo, when he's like looming over her shoulder and getting bigger and bigger in that like very sketchy style, starts to look a lot like the main character from Don't Starve.
Yeah, it does. It does a bit, yeah.
But no, like his usage as well is really, really good. It's just like this silent looming character, and it was just a really good scene. Just like gripped the whole time. It's and then one thing I thought was a cool little moment, and I don't know whether this was intentional or not, is we don't see how Vi breaks free of her bonds when she's with Echo, but she does break free of her bonds and then like hugs him. But in this sequence, it's Caitlyn who breaks free of her bonds. It's just like that she's becoming more like Vi in that sort of way. But obviously, like she does get the broken glass. But yeah, And then Jinx has superpowers now.
I mean, I guess shit. Oh yeah, we were gonna talk about her transformation with Singed, weren't we?
I was just gonna say, like, it was a really cool scene when, like, the main thing I just wanted to mention was when Singe, like, injects Silco and says, "This is for your own sanity." I thought that was a really neat little moment, and again reinforces that Silco does care about her. But yeah, she's even more fucked up now.
Yeah, I don't know if that was ever. I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't, but I don't think that was ever like on the cards for the lore beforehand that she had any sort of like enhanced abilities.
I mean, from what I've seen, she's been like pretty fast, but like League of Legends is also just like exaggerated action, so it could have just been like within that realm rather than magic. But obviously she had the purple eyes, so kind of as soon as I noticed that she didn't have purple eyes and that the shimmer was purple, I was like, she's gonna get shimmered up at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, there's potential that because it was just so soon after transformation, it was just kind of like lingering effect. Maybe, she might just keep the purple eyes, but it might wear off or something.
If we had Callum, the voice actor of Jinx, here on the show, he would be able to tell us whether she has superpowers in the game or not.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, no. Yeah, and I think it's cool as well that, like, Vi doesn't really choose Caitlyn over Powder, but that's the way that Jinx is going to see it forever. And it's just, like, fucking heartbreaking when she just says, I hoped that you could love me as I am now, but now I've realized that you're not who you were then either, sort of thing. It's just like, again, like when drama works best, and I remember having this argument with one of my film lecturers at uni, as he was like saying, why do you have to make it I was making a post-apocalyptic film, and he was like, why do you have to make it a post-apocalyptic film? Why can't you just make it a human drama? I'm like, the best dramas are human dramas, regardless of the extra context around it. And what you can do with making it more extreme is you can then enhance that drama by making it in a more crazy circumstance. So essentially that argument is two people who've been in a relationship, whether it's romantic or not, growing apart through age. And that's just something that lots of people go through in their life, is that they grow out of relationships. And it's just that drama, but you add in the whole kidnapping and the craziness and the fate of the whole city, and it becomes enhanced. But it's it's such a human thing to be like, I hoped you could love me for who I am now, but also you've changed, and I'm not sure I love you for who you are now, and that's just that is what it is, sort of thing. And it's just like, it felt so just like believable and human in an awful way. So. Yeah, and then she shoots a magic missile.
Yeah,
quite literally.
I think I'm not too sure, because as I've said, I've not really played League of Legends, and I especially haven't played Jinx, but I'm fairly sure the rocket launcher she has at the end is an ability, or perhaps her ultimate ability in League of Legends.
So I watched that scene on YouTube afterwards, and I don't know whether specifically that ability is, but apparently the sound effect that plays when, like, when the animation kind of blooms out the screen and she almost becomes like a black skeleton or like sketchy like silhouette behind the explosion. Apparently the sound that plays then is her ult sound ability, so I imagine her ult's probably her rocket launcher as well. But
yeah, I think so.
The sound is straight from the game, apparently, which is really, really cool as well.
I'm pretty sure I've seen art of her with that rocket launcher, so it's at least part of her character.
Yeah, I mean, everything in her arsenal is straight from... The only thing I've seen of Jinx, basically, is the Get Jinx music video, but all of her arsenal from that appears on the show, so, yeah. Yeah. And that was the other bit of like really awesome animation to elevate the moment was when she shoots the rocket launcher, and it just becomes so crazy, and the art style changes ever so slightly within the explosion to just like elevate just like how powerful this thing is. And then Sting's music comes in, and again, I'm still kind of shocked that Sting made a song for Arcane, but it's such a good song. And that's where we ended the show.
Well, there were a few things at the end of the show.
I forgot there was something I was going to mention about Singed, but yeah. I don't know if you caught the Singed moment during the like final montage of showing all the different characters where they are.
I saw Warwick.
That's what I was going to say. Yep. So Vander is confirmed to be Warwick then, surely. Like, that has to be.
Yes, it's got to be at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you guys are watching this, or you come back and happen to watch this, and you watched Arcane and you were like, I didn't see that. It's literally just a clip of like Singe just kind of like
playing
working
with his tools or whatever.
Yeah, and like you literally just see like a sort of furry arm with like the claws and everything
hanging up on his ceiling.
Yeah, it's Warwick. There's no way it's not.
Yeah, and well, it 100% is Warwick, and therefore it's 99.99999% Vander, because that just makes like thematic sense that it would be the same character, just captured and kept all these years by Singed, experimented on. Which again, just like that little thing just gets me so hyped for season 2, because like that's going to be a thing in season 2, right? And then Heimerdinger's working with Echo, and they look over at the stopwatch. It's all silent because it's while the music's playing and the rocket's like going towards the council. But they look over at the stopwatch, so time travel's going to be a thing for Echo probably next season.
Yep. I was just thinking, because I'm pretty sure there were like a couple of other sort of little Easter eggs in the final episode during that part.
The one that confused me, I don't know if I missed it, is Mel's mum looks at a painting of like her empire or whatever that's had paint splashed over it. Was that Mel who did that? Did I miss Mel doing that at some point, or are we not supposed to know exactly who did it?
I think it probably was Mel who did it. I think they just didn't show it. I think it was probably just during like everything that happened. Okay. I feel like her mum looking at it is kind of her realizing that
Mel's left.
She doesn't care about Noxus anymore because Piltover's a home.
I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed anything, because I did a naughty and was doing D&D stuff while watching it, so I was watching it like 80%, but occasionally I wasn't looking at the screen. So
yeah. So I'm just looking back at the ending now, and I think we get to see. Oh wait, no. Oh, I was wrong. Don't worry.
Okay.
I thought we saw Victor's hand, but no, I just realized it was the lady with like the like cog
collar
thing. Yeah, cog collar, raising a hand to.
One minor thing is, so the last time we see the council before that sequence is them all up in arms of Jace suggesting that Zorn has its independence, and then it's just cutting to they're all sat calmly raising their hands. It's like, Jace clearly said something very convincing in between those two scenes. But it's not that important, particularly because most of them are probably dead next season. So, but probably not Jace, who is like right next to the blast, but he's probably going to be mostly fine.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, if it's meant to be insanely powerful, I'm wondering how
maybe Victor does something
survive.
with his magic limbs. Maybe he like pushes Jace out of the way, because I could see Victor getting the full brunt of it because he's got magic and will probably survive in some way. But I reckon pretty much all of the council, other than him and Jace, are going to die. Mel's definitely dead, unfortunately, which sucks because she's such a cool character. But like, I don't see any way how she's surviving, because it's basically going to hit her in the back, right? Like, directly, the rocket's gonna just collide with her spine.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Which, side note, again, like, I love the animation in this show, and it's really stylized and often, does divert from realism, but they probably inspired by the Matrix and such, like with the slow mo. When the rocket hits the window, there's just this brief moment of like the window bulging with like a shockwave before it shatters, and it's just like little moments like that where I'm like, oh, that's such cool like attention to detail. That, yeah, I just loved it. But yeah. Good shit. Ends on a hell of a cliffhanger.
Oh yes, I'm very excited for season 2. I'm so glad they actually announced it and didn't just wait fucking ages to.
Shall we get onto that then? Because I think that's probably all of the Arcane that we can talk about, and we've probably talked about it for nearly 2 hours. Like, there's a little bit we're going to cut out, but nearly 2 hours.
Yeah.
Arcane has been confirmed for season 2, as you told me yesterday, which is great news. I literally, from the moment I finished that batch of episodes yesterday, I've been like waiting for the announcement. So I'm so glad it came out the same day.
Yeah.
I kind of didn't doubt that it would be announced because of how popular the show has been and how well received. But yeah, it's good.
I mean, I hope it's not going to take like 6 years or whatever it took to get the first season out.
I don't think it'll be next year, but probably 2023. Right. I think, to be fair, I believe Arcane was delayed a year due to COVID. So if it did take 6 years, it kind of took 5 years instead. But so maybe 2026. But no, I reckon probably 2023 because it's probably going to be like the top priority of that team, and Netflix are probably going to give them a big budget boost because of how good the show was and stuff. So, and a lot of Netflix originals aren't yearly, but they're like every 2 or 3 years. Like, look at Stranger Things, for instance. So yeah, probably in a year or two. Well, no, probably in 2 or 3 years would be my guess. Hopefully sooner though. If they could release it next year, I'd love that, but don't rush it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's Arcane out of the way. Which is pretty much the whole episode. And, should we quickly do things in the media week of which we have consumed?
I'll just quickly do the last little bit of Arcane news, which Callum posted today. Voice actor of Jinx let us know that that I guess I haven't actually clicked on it, but there's a new video released for the League of Legends fighting game that was teased years ago and then went off the grid. So I guess it's not dead. And the video just says Project L, which I believe is just like the project title for the game. And then Riot X Arcane Epilogue. And it seems to be a like scene of Echo and Jinx fighting each other near the Piltover Bridge in a beat 'em up game or like a fighting game. So that's cool. But I haven't actually clicked the link because we didn't have time. But anyways.
Yeah.
Things in the media that we consumed in the week. Yes. That we liked.
You can go first.
I can go first? Okay. Haunting of Bly Manor, watched and finished. So I recommended Hill House the other week. Finished Bly Manor. Less scary than Hill House, but really, really good. Really, really good kind of building up that drama. The kids are creepy. Very creepy. Don't like them, but I kind of ended up liking them by the end, but I also don't like them because they're creepy. Yeah, no, I can't say much without spoiling it, but it's a set in the like 80s in the UK in a haunted manor. And it's good. One thing I will say actually without spoiling anything is there's one really cool thing I noticed is there's ghosts in the show, and probably around about episode 2 or episode 3 I noticed something in the background, which was a character with a very distinct silhouette, and they were just standing perfectly still to the point that they blended in perfectly with the background. I just happened to like my eye caught it and went, that's not just like a statue or anything, that's like a figure but silhouetted in the background, like in front of a window or something, standing perfectly still. So then I started trying to like notice that in other scenes, and it's constant throughout the show, just in the background, just perfectly still. And then by the end of the show, you find out that there is a ghost with that exact silhouette, and I was like, "That's fucking cool." So I wonder how many other ghosts I maybe missed in the background, but that one I noticed, and like then was like, because like it's framed in ways where like you could almost like it's out of focus, and you just assume it's like a lampshade or something, but instead it's a character with a hat. I'll say that much. And so yeah, like you'd probably just like not pay attention to it until you start looking for it, and then you're like, "Oh, that's really cool." But yeah, that, and then I've started Ruined King, the League of Legends game, but I'm not very far into it, so I can't really say much, but I'm liking it so far. But I'm also a busy boy, so not that far into it.
I mean, that was pretty much all I was going to say as well. Ruined King. Again, I haven't played much for either, but so far it seems okay. It's not usually the type of game that I like, and also I'm finding it quite difficult to get into all the sort of like systems and like there are like lanes in the game and stuff, and like different sort of like map hazards that play a part in the combat, and but I'm finding it quite difficult to get into it and learn it. But I'm enjoying seeing some more characters, especially after watching Arcane and getting to know like a bit more of the story of the world. So I mean, yeah, I'd say if you like Arcane and you're kind of interested in a bit more League of Legends lore and whatever, I'd probably say give it a go. You know,
it's a like turn-based game, kind of. Is it an RPG? Kind of an RPG, I guess.
It's like a turn-based RPG strategy, real-time strategy,
adventure game, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, its combat's a little bit weird because you said it has like the normal lane, the fast lane, and the power lane. And like if you put your move in the fast lane, it will do it quicker, and then if you put it in the power lane, it will take longer but be more powerful. And then if you leave it in the normal lane, it's just normal. And then like each round of combat, different characters in the combat go at different points based on their initiative. But then if you go on the fast lane, maybe you'll go before another character and kill them before they get to do it. But obviously like your attack's weaker, and it's an interesting system. I feel like it's to try and make the game unique compared to other games that are similar, but it definitely is. The like 2 hours I played, I was like, that's going to take some getting used to, but it's not bad by any means. It's just interesting and weird.
Yeah. Oh, also, I'll just say I've been watching loads of House clips. If you've never seen House, go watch House. It's fantastic. I just love it so much.
I've never watched the show, but I've seen a bunch of clips from it. So
yeah,
and
you should definitely do that.
I also know House, Roundhouse from Family Guy.
Yeah.
No, not Roundhouse, Roadhouse. I think is whatever.
Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Where are you at in The Witcher?
I finished the second book. I'm a few hours into the third, and I am very much enjoying it. So you can expect a rant on that again at a later date.
Also, finished Bly Manor, as I said. So then I moved on to Midnight Mass, which is the third Netflix show by Mac Flanagan, which are like his horror shows. Hell House and Bly Manor are like an anthology series. They're not related, but they're featuring the same cast and crew, and they're very thematically similar because they're both about haunted houses. Midnight Mass is by the same crew and has quite a few returning cast members, but it's not about a haunted house, but it is a horror show. Instead, it's like on a remote island, like community in America somewhere. It's good so far. It's slow, and I'm not sure if it's going to be for everyone because it's very religious horror so far. A lot of it is like Catholicism and playing on that, which is, I grew up Catholic, so quite a lot of it's relatable to me. But I know that that's not going to be for everyone. But I'm enjoying it.
So it's a lot of like, God's not real.
Let's just put it this way. Spoiler alert, I guess, for a bit in Midnight Mass. The episode I just finished yesterday features a miracle at the end, but I'm not sure I trust the person who did the miracle because they don't seem trustworthy. So maybe it's more
Right.
spooky stuff instead of miracles. But it's, yeah.
I mean, hey, people didn't like Jesus because they didn't think he was trustworthy.
Touche. But yeah, no, it's good. But it's like I said, some people like there is a drawn out sequence where a priest is giving communion, and it's like, I don't know, 3 minutes of a priest giving communion, and it's like, do you want to watch a priest give communion for 3 minutes? Probably not, but it's authentic. They got it right. It's very boring, just like it was when I was a kid. But it's I guess it's to play on all of those religious tropes of, like, you know, rural. Like one of the cool elements of it, not cool in the conventional sense, is that it's this like very tight knit Catholic community on this small remote island, and then they have the sheriff who's just recently moved, who is Muslim, and there's all that like kind of casual, accidental racism and like religious ear where things like, hey sheriff, if you could just come to mass just to be there for the you don't have to do mass because you're Muslim, but if you could just come, it's just like, just don't do that, just don't have that conversation with people, just no, let him have his thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're like, we're not trying to be Islamophobic, but just like, you know, it'd be great if you came to church for the community. And it's just like, I've seen people act like that in the real world, and it's awful, and I hate it. And it's very relatable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good, but it's not going to be for everyone. But yeah, I think that's all for me though. You got anything else?
Not really. I mean, there's going to be a Hunt Showdown show, but I feel like we can talk about that in another episode because we're running quite over.
And it's going to be cut down a little bit, and there's not much to say at the moment. I guess the main thing is, if you don't know, we're massive Hunt Showdown fans. It's probably the one game that you, me, and Tommy play frequently together.
Yeah.
And they're making it into a TV show on a platform I'd never heard of before called binge.com. Which will be apparently a free streaming platform for gaming-related content.
I mean, I guess for those of you that don't know what Hunt Showdown is, it's basically like a kind of PvE, PvP battle royale type game set in like the old West, but it's filled with monsters and disgusting zombies and water devils and all these creepy things and weird bugs and glitches in the game that make you question your sanity. And you basically have like the main objective of at least the game mode that we play, which is Bounty Hunt, is there are like I think there are either 4 or 5 bosses overall in the game, and you'll go into a game. You'll go into a game and you'll either have 2 or 1 bosses, and they will carry 2 tokens each. You can play solo, go in as a duo, or play as a trio. And you basically have to go and kill these bosses and try and get the bounty, and then try and get out of there and extract. But all the while you're doing this, the lobby is filled with other players that are also doing the same thing, and you will probably most likely want to kill them because they will try and kill you.
Yeah, there's around about 15 players in total, potentially, for a game, but not always. And that can be, again, trios, duos, or solo players. So there could theoretically be a team of 3 and then 12 other solo players, or it could be any combination. And yeah, as you said, like, usually they're going to shoot first if you don't. So, but there have been I've heard of instances where people have actually like gone, whoa, what if you take one of the bounties and we take one of the, and we just go our separate ways? And apparently, like, occasionally it happens and occasionally it works out, but not very often.
But yeah, and also, like, I'll just quickly say, weapons and everything, it's kind of just like revolvers and like rifles and shotguns, nothing like too crazy. I mean, there are a couple of crazy things. There's like
bomb lance.
a bomb lance, yeah, which is
a
pretty
lance
weird
that shoots bombs.
Yeah, and you know, there's a few things like that, but overall, it's a really fun game. if you like battle royales, definitely give it a go.
But at the same time, if you don't like battle royales, it is a battle royale, but it's like no other battle royale I've ever played. It is truly like it's things that if you like battle royales, you might like it. But also, if you like usually don't like that sort of vibe, you spawn in with your weapons. It's a fairly large map, but fairly few characters. There are plenty of games where we as a group will get to a bounty, kill the bounty, and extract, no issue, like without coming across a single other player group. And there are plenty of rounds where we'll be running along and one of us will get our head sniped off from 150 meters away. It varies, and most of the time you get to be into a fight with people fairly close quarters, and you actually get to play tactically. And it's not as crazy and hectic as a battle royale, and there's nothing really forcing you to go near any other players either, like other than if you want the bounty, which is the main reason for playing it. But you could just hunt players, you could theoretically just kill grunts and then leave, because you can leave the game anytime as well. So yeah,
Very good.
really good, really unique game, and it's getting a live action TV show, which I'm intrigued. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily excited, but Arcane, if anything, has told me that you can make good video game adaptations. So I'm intrigued, and I'll see.
I mean, I think it's a very interesting and intriguing concept of, old west with zombies and like weird creatures and stuff. I'm sure it's been done before, but nothing that comes to mind for me, at least.
Well, I think what's really interesting as well is, similarly to League of Legends in a way, Hunt has a very rich lore that is very carefully teased out in like blog posts on their website and stuff, and you can watch videos about it and everything. But like a lot of it's not really in the game, because the game is usually just you play around and you hunt the same bounties over and over again, and it's always slightly different in terms of like what exactly happens in the game, but the basic premise is the same every single game. And so there's not a huge amount of lore there, but there is quite a lot of rich lore that has been released by the team. So a TV show can quite easily tap into all of that lore, but present a brand new story that doesn't have to tread on the toes of the game, because the game doesn't really have much of a story in the day-to-day playing of it. So yeah. But I do hope that they have some of the stupid shenanigans that happens in that game in the show. But yeah, I think that's probably it.
I believe so, yes.
Most of the show was, this will probably be called like the Arcane. We might just call it the Arcane show.
Yeah. Or just Arcane.
All right. Thanks for watching, listening, sharing, liking, favoriting, subscribing, putting in a envelope and giving it to a carrier pigeon, sending it to France to your pen pal, or disliking the video and commenting saying that you hate us. It's all.
And also, I realized we didn't say this episode. Please sponsor us, Marvel Strike Force.
Or Monster Energy Mango Loco. I did that on stream yesterday. Please sponsor us.
Or Loot Crate. I'd like a Loot Crate. Or Hello Fresh. That would be nice too.
Or HelloFresh. I'd go for some HelloFresh.
Anyone, please. We'll accept Raid Shadow Legends.
Bye.
Goodbye.